here we are, the final update for Warzone and Vanguard, or so it would seem. In a month's time, we'll be jumping into Modern Warfare 2 in its entirety, Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer campaign for those who hadn't experienced it with that week early access the week before, and Spec Ops, but what we have right now is looking like the last title update on the main year, or in Warzone's case, years plural of support. Today we're breaking down what's changed and what's new, what you should be looking out for, so that whether or not you jump on and grind out the remainder of the month until launch of Modern Warfare 2, or you just want to check out what's new and log off, you'll be entirely in the loop with what you need to know. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. How you feeling about this update as a whole? Whether it be the content at hand or the excitement to finally move on, or perhaps the realization that Warzone 1's era is coming to a close. Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things COD. Full transparency, we probably won't be touching Vanguard again here until our year in review video comes out in a few weeks, and we'll probably only have a handful of other Warzone 1 videos remaining. But if you'd like to join us on the road to 500,000 subscribers here going into Modern Warfare 2 and beyond, I'd love to have you. For now, let's take a look at this new Warzone update and everything that changed. First, perhaps the biggest part of the update in terms of a functional aspect is that of the new content offering in weaponry. We have the BP-50 and the Lienna 57, an AR and an LMG respectively. Now, both these weapons are available via challenges in Vanguard and MP and or zombies, depending on what you find to be a little more worthwhile, and there seemingly will be bundles associated with each of these, but both weapons are pretty good from some quick play testing against bots that I did yesterday. Granted, every weapon plays differently in Vanguard as opposed to Warzone, but if it's anything like these and how you play with them in Warzone, it's going to be an interesting set of weapons. I mean, because you can kit out the BP-50, it has a rather fast rate of fire, but you can kit it out to have quite literally zero recoil, and that control is insanely easy to manage. And the Lienna, I think it has the potential to break into the meta here if we can kit it out properly, and if it does stack up accordingly. But we'll have to see how that all breaks down in regards to Warzone play within the next few hours going into today and into the next day or two here, while everybody learns the ins and outs of the weapons. But beyond that, in terms of the Warzone specific changes, we got some patch notes from Raven in which they first started by thanking us for our playtime and talking about the last year or two here that they've been working as the primary for Warzone. After that, they ended up moving on to detail some of the playlists that we'll end up seeing here over the course of the next couple of weeks, in which the next final few weeks are going to be the greatest hits of the year playlist, happening once a week with a variant of Plunder as well as Fortune's Keep and Rebirth always being present. But you'll see things like solo play of buyback solos, battle royale solos, and champion of Caldera solos. You'll see rebirth modes like Rebirth Blood Money and Rebirth Payload coming in season. Caldera will have Caldera Iron Trials, Caldera Resurgence, Golden Plunder, Clash, Champion of Caldera, Battle Royale buybacks in various squad sizes, and Sticks and Stones returning. And then also we'll have a new Rebirth Resurgence Extreme introduced here a little later on, which honestly looks really cool here, where they stated they increased the tension by increasing the length of the Resurgence countdown timer, allowing players to come back later on into the game. Players will also have a slight increase in that core HP to 200, so you'll have the opportunity to, with armor, have 350 HP, increasing that TTK slightly. Every elimination will now show enemy squad locations as pings for a little longer on that minimap. Players trying to return their teammates back to the action, every single action will now reduce the countdown timer twice as fast, and avenging a squad mate will greatly reduce that countdown. The lowest rarity of weapon you'll find is Epic, and players will be able to deploy with iconic and powerful weapons, with all weapons having most legendary skins that Warzone has to offer. So sounds pretty fun. I'm excited to jump into this one here. That does not come around until week 3 of this update though, starting on the week of October 13th. So we got a little bit of time before we jump into that. But beyond that, if you log on, you'll also notice that you'll have a few free calling cards introduced to this update. These telling the stories of Warzone's past, that being King Growl, the Cracked Meta, the Eagle Child, Big Fish, Pest Control, and the Swap Seat Snipe calling cards, again, available for just simply logging on. In terms of gameplay changes, we saw a handful of actually pretty big changes, but some other stuff that may not be as major. The biggest one, though, to me, is the loadout drop changes. Now in Standard BR, not just your LTMs, loadout drops will decrease in price by $500 per circle, similar to how they did in Titanium Trials. Circle 1 costing $10,000, Circle 2 costing $9,500, Circle 3 costing $9,000, and so on and so forth, all the way until the very end zone when the circle will actually close in instead of moving. Now, that's an awesome addition in my opinion. I honestly really enjoy how that adjusts the flow. It makes regaining a lot more manageable late game if your squad gets wiped than you win your gulags. But that said, we also see ATMs from Plunder and Golden Plunder now making their way over into Battle Royale, and the gulag and redeploy tokens will now have the doubled spawn rate in legendary supply boxes with an increased slightly spawn rate to the regular supply boxes as well. We saw a couple of quality of life changes introduced with this also, where the recommended weapons now include Modern Warfare 2019 and Cold War weapons if they are meta relevant. The golden keycard bunkers will now have a yellow circle highlighted on the tac map. The manual gas mask has some better text in the settings, and there's a slight change to the quick inventory menu for easier manual equipping. Supply box UAVs now no longer show the red rebirth supply boxes, and the scavenger perk now guarantees $1,000 cash on enemy elimination. So I'm not saying that scavenger is going to be something you should run over top of any of the other perks in that category, but it does add some serious value here to that perk. So especially if you find it in ground loot, pick it up. It's not going to hurt, and it's going to benefit you long term. Now, the PDS duration was the final thing that was adjusted here, where that was increased to 20 seconds, up from the standard 13. Now, beyond that, we have some weapon tuning, and there's a lot here, like genuinely one of the largest in quantity changes to amount of weapons and things tampered with. So I was debating on making this its own video, but decided against it. Figured let's keep it all in one place here for this one. Let's close it all out in one update video. So we're going to get through this all pretty fast. I'll have it on screen for you guys to follow along, but apologies for any droning in numbers and things coming up. To start, the rifles, the CR56 AMAX saw buffs to the max damage range and upper torso damage multiplier. The Automaton saw nerfs to the neck damage multiplier and lower torso damage. The M4A1, the OG from Modern Warfare, saw a neck damage multiplier increase. The QBZ from Cold War saw a headshot damage multiplier and neck damage multiplier increase. The Odin, it's been a long time since we saw this one adjusted. It got a buff to the muzzle velocity and upper arm damage multiplier. The EX1 saw buffs to the mid damage and nerfs to the ADS spread among a few attachment specific changes. The Itra Burst saw buffs to the rate of fire, and the ability to auto burst now is available. The EM2 has a headshot multiplier and minimum damage buff. Might actually be worth checking this out again now because of that. The headshot damage multiplier actually is quite substantial. The FFAR saw buffs to the muzzle velocity, ADS movement speed scaler, and ADS transition time, essentially making it just a bit faster all around. The Volkswagen saw a slight nerf to the ADS movement scaler. And then moving on to the shotguns, the Ironhide, Combat Shotgun, Gallo, and Street Sweeper all had buffs to the various pellet damages and some speed modifiers. Not a single listed nerf across the board here at that, so we'll see how that plays out in the grand scheme of meta, close quarters, and such like that. But beyond that, we saw the submachine guns. The Armor Guerra had nerfs to the headshot damage multiplier, neck damage multiplier, and ADS movement scalar values, while some adjustments were made to specific attachments as well, nerfing those slightly. The Bullfrog saw a lower arm damage multiplier and hand damage multiplier increase, so a slight buff to that, but again, that one's a little more inconsequential, just kind of bring it in line with the rest of the body shots as a 1.0 multiplier. The RA225 from Vanguard saw a neck damage multiplier decrease, so a slight nerf with that, but some adjustments made accordingly to a few attachments. The Blixen saw a lower damage multiplier decrease. It's kind of minimal in the grand scheme of things, but still technically a stated nerf, only though I'd say slight. The ISO from Modern Warfare had a neck damage multiplier increase and sprint to fire speed increase. The CX9 from Modern Warfare also had a headshot damage multiplier, neck damage multiplier, and sprint to fire increase. The KSP from Black Ops Cold War saw the auto burst fire now enabled, but lower extremity damage multipliers were decreased, so a slight nerf to that. The MP40 from Vanguard actually got a slight buff to the 7.62 Gorenko 45 round magazines, decreasing the muzzle velocity penalty and damage range penalty, so that one's a slight buff overall. The PPSH from Vanguard saw a handful of nerfs here, which probably the most substantial of changes I'd say out of these adjustments. We saw min damage decrease, an upper leg damage multiplier decrease, but then a ton of changes to the Kovaleskaia 230mm barrel, the 8mm 71 round magazine, the rapid barrel, and tight grip. So this might knock it down a few pegs in that meta, which I'm okay with. It was kind of one of the more standout weapons in the meta, so just a little shake up here at that one. The UGM8 moving over to the LMGs saw a min damage decrease, headshot damage multiplier decrease, neck damage multiplier decrease, and recoil intensity increase, so some hefty nerfs to the UGM across the board there. The marksman rifles of the crossbow and the M1 Garand got adjusted, the crossbow with some slight buffs, the M1 Garand having some slight nerfs. I think snipers had a handful of adjustments here. The AX50 saw a slight buff with bullet drop off decrease, but the muzzle velocity increase. The Dragunov saw some buffs, which is interesting, increasing the max damage range, max damage overall, and minimum damage values. The Rytech AMR can now one-shot headshot at any range, increasing that minimum damage and headshot damage multiplier. The Pellington now has a bunch of buffs to the ADS transition in and out times, neck damage multiplier, upper torso and lower torso damage multipliers. And the Gorenko anti-tank rifle, that PTRS, saw some slight slight nerfs across the board as well. So some adjustments and shakeups to the sniper meta, but then we see the Clouser pistol buffed across a handful of attachments, and then we saw some buffs to some launchers. So honestly, a lot of stuff in regards to how much was changed, but in terms of where that shakes up the meta, how that ends up adjusting your power rankings, it's a little bit still up in the air. Some weapons definitely can stand out. The EM2, I'm definitely interested in jumping back in and trying out for the first time in a while again. The CR56 AMAX may have a place now in that top 10, top 15 once again. The Armor Guerra may drop down a little bit, but we'll see how it all works out in the next coming days here, and of course, we'll keep it the day with all of that. But beyond that, so far we haven't seen any indication of a seasonal update of any kind to close out the Warzone 1 era. To me, kind of a missed opportunity there in my opinion, and we didn't really see any substantial map changes this time around, but I get it. We're closing out the book on Caldera and the Warzone 1 experience that we have, so to that degree, I see where the transition to the next era has already begun. Now, that said, despite a rocky start to the year with Caldera and the absurdly broken launch of Pacific, I gotta tip it, man. Raven turned it around here, I think, this year in terms of not only just communication, but offering some worthwhile changes in Warzone. I think they did a great job at providing quality of life improvements to keep the game fresh and engaging. And honestly, some of my favorite things in the gameplay loop of Warzone were added this year. From things like the redeploy balloons, the lootable perks. As out there as they were, some of the events and LTMs were really kick-ass this year. So honestly, I appreciate what we've had here and experienced the last year or so. And while I look forward to Warzone 2 and playing something new here in particular, without what was happening this year in Warzone, honestly, I probably wouldn't be playing or uploading a whole ton of COD this year. Vanguard lost my interest with the lack of content very early on. I hadn't really played outside of just leveling weapons Vanguard since January. So like Warzone really kept me afloat here this year. Maybe it's the same for you. And I gotta say to Raven, I appreciate it. I appreciate what was done here with Warzone and the experience overall. I won't lie though, it is weird to consider that this is the final update for what we've had for the last 2.5 years, especially how much meaning Warzone has to some people. I mean, when it launched, it got myself, and I'm sure plenty of you guys through some tough times in regards to that global pandemic, the world shutting down, and really all we had was gaming to get us through that time. So it's weird to let go, but from here, we move on, and with that, that's your Season 5 Reloaded update. So that's what we're going to call it. I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down below. What do you guys think of this here? Are you guys excited for what's upcoming? Are you sad that this is the last update for Warzone? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2 going forward for the most part, but also some stuff here with Warzone still upcoming. If you guys would like to join the community and join us on the road to 500,000 subscribers, I'd love to have you. But for now, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys out there. Take care and peace.